Sometimes in breaking news, we get orders from federal judges that we like the one that just came out from the chief judge in the Eastern District of Virginia that on the surface strips Lindsey Halligan of her U.S. attorney title in the Eastern District of Virginia and then tries to fill the vacancy with a new help wanted poster. I sort of like that. I just don't understand how the chief judge got there, because that vacancy was created back in November the 24th, when a person wearing a black robe and is a judge named Judge Currie issued an order stripping Lindsey Halligan of her title and creating a quote unquote vacancy, waiting for the Eastern District of Virginia judges to fill. Now, we've been banging the drum here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF for the Eastern District of Virginia's judges to get together, as is required under the Vacancy Reform Act, to fill that spot. We were scratching our head like, why aren't they doing it? I might have the answer to that mystery in the new order from Chief Judge Hawk, but I just don't agree with how she got there. Again, like the headline, stripping Lindsey Halligan of a title, but I don't like it in the way that it's been done. I brought the receipts. Let's get to it here on the MeidasTouch and Legal AF networks and podcast. Okay, here we go. Lindsey Halligan, the novice prosecutor, no prosecutor experience, one of Donald Trump's best friends, gets appointed by him in and around October to do two things. To go after former FBI Director James Comey, go after current New York Attorney General Letitia James with mortgage fraud indictments. She gets the indictments somehow. But both parties challenge her title, that she was not properly appointed. She was illegally appointed, unconstitutionally appointed to be a U.S. attorney. See, we have rules about these things. They're baked into the Constitution. Article 1 gives the Senate the power to confirm. And if parties are not confirmed, unless they are filling in temporarily under a statute we call the Vacancy Reform Act, they can't play prosecutor. So the statute anticipates that if there is a vacancy created, there's about 3 or 4 different ways that vacancy can be filled. The easiest way is to elevate the person that was in the job as the deputy assistant, the first assistant to that U.S. attorney. Failing that, then you can put somebody in for 120 days. Failing that, you can put somebody in who's been confirmed in a Senate position for some other job, like agriculture secretary, can serve as the U.S. attorney if you wanted him to. At least they're Senate confirmed. And absent that, it gets filled by the judges of the district until the president gets his own person confirmed from the Senate. Well, Trump didn't want to do that. He didn't want to put Lindsey Halligan through the process. He just nominated her on the 13th of January. She's been in the job since October. Now, this all got before a federal judge named Judge Currie, who ruled in November after a hearing and briefing that Lindsey Halligan was illegally appointed. What was her primary basis for that? That she was interim U.S. attorney number 2. There had been an earlier one named Eric Siebert, a Republican, who quit or was fired because he wouldn't go after Comey and Letitia James. That created a vacancy that could not be filled, so Judge Currie ruled, by another 120-day appointed person. You could only elevate at that point the number 2. There wasn't a number 2 there that they wanted to elevate. Lindsey Halligan didn't fit the bill. Or they could pull somebody else in from another area of the administration already confirmed. They didn't want to do that. They wanted Lindsey Halligan. So they tried to do an end run to make her special attorney, the way that Jack Smith was special attorney or special prosecutor. And nobody bought that. And Judge Currie on the 24th of November ruled that she was illegally appointed, ruled that her indictments were invalid. As a result, bounced her from the job and declared at the end of the order that there was a vacancy created that could only be filled by the judges of that district. So we were all waiting around for the judges to get together. Like, what are they waiting for? I mean, every few days during a hot take, I would say, still waiting for the Eastern District of Virginia judges. Now, when there was a vacancy created in New Jersey before Alina Habba, the judges got together and put somebody in. She was fired 24 hours later, but at least they tried. And eventually Alina Habba got fired and bounced by a judge, affirmed by the Third Circuit, and she's gone. This path on appeal, Trump's been slowing down the appeal. He's trying to do an end run around, create a loophole to continue her in the job, showing up every day, impersonating a U.S. attorney. As far as I'm concerned, she's been impersonating a U.S. attorney since the afternoon of November 24th. But it was weird. We were like, why aren't the judges in the Virginia meeting? Well, I think I have the answer. It's not a great answer, but I think I have the answer. It's because they didn't really believe that a vacancy was created until today, until the 20th of January. What? Vacancy was created on the 24th of November, which is important because Judge Novak, who's one of the many judges of the Eastern District, has called Lindsey Halligan out and has required the Department of Justice to defend why she's impersonating since November a U.S. attorney and why she shouldn't be sanctioned. And I thought, all right, well, it sounds like a good argument. Department of Justice last week, attacked Judge Novak. He has no right. He has no power. She's not impersonating. Judge Currie's decision doesn't apply in every courtroom, only applies about Letitia James and James Comey, which makes no sense. And I was like, well, he's going to throw the book at them. And then, like, out of the blue, an inadvertent life preserver comes in the form of Chief Judge Hannah Luck's order, which I don't understand. Again, I get where we're at, right? You know, we got maybe to the same place with different math, like 2 + 2 is 4 and 3 and 1 is 4, but I don't think so. Yes, it strips Lindsey Halligan of the title, but today we're on the 20th of January. Here's the weird part. Let me read it to you, and I'll put it up on Legal AF Substack. Order to Jan 20. On September 22nd, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, citing 28 U.S.C. Section 546, that's the Vacancy Reform Act, stated that she was appointing Lindsey Halligan to serve as the interim U.S. attorney. Okay. The order recognized that Ms. Halligan may not serve as the interim beyond the earlier of her appointment and confirmation at the Senate. Okay, I sort of agree with that. Or 120 days after Ms. Halligan's appointment by the Attorney General. That date is January 20th, 2026. Stop. Lindsey Halligan was the second interim U.S. attorney, completely ignored by the order. There was a prior U.S. attorney. Also ignored by the order is any mention, and I looked on the 1.5-page order, of Judge Currie's decision as of November 24th, to which I respectfully ask the Chief Judge, what do you think Judge Currie was doing? If not deciding whether there was an illegal appointment and declaring there was a vacancy. How do you read the order? It's not rhetorical. It's actually a direct question. And why do you ignore it? There's not even a footnote that says, well, we understand there's some debate about when the vacancy was created, but we're taking the position that it's today. I don't see that anywhere. Really weird. Weird. So now, but it does explain why from November 24th until today, it's been crickets and silence at the Eastern District of Virginia. So they go on to say, since they're starting with today as the vacancy, we got to fill that vacancy. Okay. So they are in the exercise of the authority to appoint an interim U.S. attorney until the position is filled by the Senate. The court is soliciting expressions of interest in the position. Send in your solicitation in the next, your interest, your confidential expression of interest, like your resume, your application, by the 21 days. To which I joked with the Meidas folks, I'm going to apply. But again, all kidding aside, it's really serious because I don't like what this potentially does in the Judge Novak case, because he has in front of him, to get the last word in, a order to show cause in which he demanded, as a federal judge has the right to do under his inherent authority, for the Department of Justice to explain why he shouldn't strip Lindsey Halligan of her license. Because in his view, she'd been impersonating and masquerading as a U.S. attorney since Judge Currie's order, which he recognizes, back on November 24th. But the chief judge, just like an Etch-a-Sketch, just like erased the date and said, no, it's today. I'm like, what? Why are you bailing out the Trump administration? And to answer the question, she's a Barack Obama appointee. We're going to see the next steps. I can only predict what they're going to be. The Department of Justice saying to Judge Novak, see, even your chief judge doesn't believe that there was a vacancy before today. So you can't buck the chief judge and say that there was one earlier. She doesn't even agree with you. There's no mention of Judge Currie. See, their position, the Department of Justice's position has always been that Judge Currie was only speaking about the Letitia James and James Comey case and nothing else. And that she was powerless to declare the vacancy. And she never declared a vacancy, but she did. She did. I've always been calling for two things to happen. Judge Currie to issue a clarifying order that she created a vacancy and that the chief judges need to meet and fill it. I've been pounding the table on that for 2.5 months. And now you see what's happened, idle hands, devil's plaything, making mischief out of the loophole and a little bit of vagary and ambiguity in the order if you read it a certain way. Now Judge Huck, whatever pronunciation is, comes in, Luck, and says, today's the day for the vacancy. So weird. I'll continue to follow it. Fast-moving story here on MeidasTouch and Legal AF. Take a moment, come over to Legal AF YouTube channel. I got 12 hours of programming every day at the intersection of law and politics and our Legal AF Substack, where you can read the order for yourself. Until then, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.